It is the morning of the 12th of October, 1917, in Belgian Flanders, and you are standing in water up to your knees. Not in a river, not in a flooded cellar, in a field. Ahead of you is a low ridge with a village on it. The village is called Passchendaele. The ridge is not a mountain. From where you stand, it is barely a swelling in the landscape, the kind of slope you would walk over on a road, in peacetime, without ever noticing you had climbed anything. You are going to notice it. Many of the men standing in this water with you are not going to reach the top of it at all. And here is what you need to understand before any of it starts, because it is the whole story of this place. The Germans on that ridge are going to shoot at you, and their machine guns are going to do terrible work this morning. But the guns are not the reason most of the men who die on this ground will never be found again. That is the ground itself. The ground is not neutral here. The ground is not a stage the battle happens on. In Flanders, in the autumn of 1917, the ground is a weapon, and it has already been aimed, and it is going to kill men who were never hit by anything at all. This is your last day in the mud. This is how the earth was turned into the thing that drowned you. To understand what is about to happen to you, you have to understand what this land was before anyone fought over it. Flanders is low. Parts of it sit barely above the level of the sea, and some of it sits below. For centuries, the people here farmed it anyway, and they could do that for one reason only. They drained it. Generation after generation dug and maintained a fine web of ditches and channels across these fields, and that web carried the water away. It was invisible work. Nobody photographed it, but it was the only reason a man could stand in a Flanders field in October without sinking. Now consider what an artillery barrage does to a field. Beginning on the 16th of July, 1917, British guns opened on the German lines here and did not stop. 15 days without a pause, right up to the early hours of the 31st. More than 4 million shells came down on this ground before a single man went forward. They were aimed at the German positions. They also, without anyone intending it, destroyed the drainage. Every ditch blown apart, every channel filled in, or opened out, or simply erased. A web that had carried the water off this land for hundreds of years, gone inside 2 weeks. And then it began to rain. August of 1917 was the wettest this part of Belgium had seen in about 30 years. The rain fell onto a landscape that had lost the ability to swallow it, and the water did the only thing left to do. It stayed. The whole Ypres sector became one enormous swamp. Not muddy fields, a swamp. Shell craters filled to the brim, stopped being holes, and became ponds. Ponds with sides of wet clay that a man's boots could not climb. The tanks came, because the tanks were supposed to be the answer to all of this. They sank. They bogged down where they stood and were shot to pieces or simply abandoned. And men drowned. Not a handful in some freak accident. Men and horses drowned in the mud of Flanders that autumn, and everyone in this army knows it, and everyone in this army is now walking towards it. So how do you move an army across a swamp? You build a road on top of it, out of wood. They are called duckboards, plank walkways laid end to end, running for miles across the churned ground. They are perhaps a yard wide. They are laid on top of mud that will not hold a man's weight, and they shift and sag as you walk on them. Look at any photograph taken here and you see the same image, over and over. A line of men in single file on a narrow strip of boards, with a landscape either side of them that looks like the surface of a dead planet. The single file is not for tidiness. There is nowhere else to be. Off the boards, in some places you sink to your knees, in others to your waist. And in the flooded craters, which is most of the ground, over most of this front, you go in over your head, in water and liquid clay, wearing 60 pounds of equipment with steep, slick sides and nothing to grip. Men went into those craters and did not come out. Sometimes their friends could see them. Sometimes they could hear them and could not reach them, because reaching them meant leaving the boards, and leaving the boards meant joining them. And here is what makes the boards worse than the swamp. The Germans know exactly where the boards are. They can see the tracks. They have had weeks to range their guns on them. They shell the duckboard routes deliberately and continuously, because the duckboard routes are the only places human beings can be. There is no cover on a plank walkway. There is nothing to dive into except the thing that drowns you. So you walk up to the line in single file, at night, in rain, along a route the enemy has already measured, and you keep walking because stepping off is not an escape. It is the other way to die. Everything you think you know about being wounded needs to be thrown away in this place. In an ordinary battle, on ordinary ground, being hit is a catastrophe with a chance attached to it. Bearers come, 2 men, sometimes 4. They carry you back. If the wound has not killed you outright, there is a real possibility that you live. Here the arithmetic collapses. It takes 4 to 6 men to carry one stretcher through this mud, not because the man on it is heavy, but because the bearers themselves are sinking and slipping and having to be pulled out and having to lift the stretcher over water. Even short distances take hours. A journey that should take 2 hours can take 6 or 8. Read that again, then apply it to yourself, lying on your back with a hole in you. It means help cannot come quickly because there is no quickly. It means that when it comes slowly and in the open, along the same shelled boards as everybody else. It means that a wound you would survive on the Somme is not survivable here, simply because of the number of hours between you and a doctor. And it means something worse, which is the thing the men who were here wrote about for the rest of their lives. If you fall off the boards wounded, into the water, nobody can save you. Not because they don't want to, because a man reaching down to you from a narrow plank, in the dark, with the shells coming, cannot brace himself against anything. He will come in on top of you. So on this battlefield, men had to make a decision no army has a manual for, and then live the rest of their lives having made it. Ask the obvious question, the one every man on those boards asked, usually with worse language. What is worth this? Not the village. Passchendaele is a small Belgian farming village of no importance to anybody, and by the time it is taken, there is nothing standing in it. The answer is submarines. In the spring of 1917, German U-boats are sinking Allied shipping faster than Britain can replace it, and some of those submarines work out of ports on the Belgian coast, in German hands. Take the high ground around Ypres, the plan runs, then turn north and drive the Germans off that coast. So on paper, you are not attacking a rise in a field. You are the first few miles of a line that is supposed to end at the submarine pens. In more than 100 days of fighting, the advance covers about 5 miles, for more than 250,000 men killed, wounded, and missing. The coast is never reached. 5 miles, and you are standing on the ground that is about to eat one of them. Now, while you are standing in that water on the morning of the 12th, understand why you are standing there at all. Because the reason is not a battlefield reason. It was made a long way behind you, on paper. By October, the German losses in this campaign are enormous, and headquarters can see the figures. From the figures, the British High Command draws a conclusion. The enemy is at the end of his strength. His resistance is faltering. One more push and the ridge is ours. On the 9th of October, an attack goes in at Poelcapelle. British and Australian troops are to break the ground open so that the Anzac Corps can take the village of Passchendaele 3 days later. That attack collapses. It goes in without proper preparation against strong German resistance, and it fails with heavy casualties. That should have been the end of the timetable. It is not. The attack on the 12th goes ahead anyway, on the same conclusion, from the same figures, in the same weather, over ground that 3 more days of rain have made worse. That is why you are here, not because anyone with eyes on this ground believed it could work, because a number on a desk somewhere said the Germans were nearly finished. Morning, rain again. The battlefield is a swamp of sticking mud and flooded shell holes, and you go forward into it. You cannot run. That is the first thing, and it is the thing that decides the day. A man cannot run across this. He cannot even walk normally. Every step has to be pulled out of the ground before the next one can be taken, and the mud takes hold of the boot and keeps it, and the whole advance slows to a crawl. An advance that slows to a crawl, in the open, uphill, in daylight, in front of machine guns. You are not a soldier attacking a position anymore. You are a target moving at walking pace, on a slope, with nowhere to go sideways and nothing to hide behind. And the men on that ridge have all the time in the world. German artillery ranges you. German machine guns sweep the slope. And the ground holds you in place while they do it. Men go down. Some are hit. Some slip and go into water and stay there. The line does not break and run because there is nowhere to run to and no speed to run at. It simply thins. And on the flank beside you, this same morning, something happens that will still be the worst day in another country's history 100 years from now. The New Zealand division goes forward at a spur called Bellevue. By the end of the day, it has taken about 2,700 casualties on that one low rise. 2,740 to be exact about it. 843 New Zealanders are dead or lying between the lines dying. Lying out there, in the rain, on ground where the bearers need 6 men in 6 hours. In terms of lives lost in a single day, the 12th of October 1917 remains the greatest disaster in New Zealand's military history. Not its worst day of the First World War, its worst day in all of it, and it happens on a slope in Belgium that most people who live near it now walk across without knowing. Those men came about 12,000 miles to reach this field. You came about 200. That is the distance between this water and your mother's kitchen. 200 miles. A day's traveling in a world where anyone was traveling. Neither of you is going home. The campaign grinds on for another month. On the 6th of November, Canadian troops finally take what is left of the village of Passchendaele, a name on a map that has, by this point, stopped being a village in any sense a person would recognize. The battle is formally allowed to end on the 10th. Add up the bill. The British armies come out of this campaign with about 275,000 casualties. The Germans with about 220,000. In less than a month of it, 6,405 Australians are killed or die of wounds, and another 19,194 are wounded. For that, the line has moved a few miles, and the ridge is in British hands. Now hold that thought for 5 months. In April of 1918, the Germans attack in Flanders again, and the British commander here, facing that attack, looks at the Passchendaele Ridge, the ridge that cost 250,000 casualties, and gives the only sensible order available to him. He gives it up. At noon on the 12th of April, the corps holding it is ordered to begin pulling the infantry back that night. The men walk off the ridge. The Germans reoccupy Passchendaele. Everything that was taken in 1917 is lost inside about 20 days. The ground you drowned for was handed back by men who were right to hand it back because by then it was worth nothing and had never been worth what it cost. Go to that ridge today and you will find a cemetery on the high ground the Germans held, the ground they looked down from, across all of you, for months. It is called Tyne Cot. Behind the graves there is a long curved wall, and the wall carries names, almost 35,000 of them. Not 35,000 dead, 35,000 men whose graves are not known. Men who went into the mud of this salient and were never found in it. The wall exists because there was nothing to bury. Most of those names are British. In among them there is a section that belongs to New Zealand. 1,176 names, New Zealanders with no known grave. There is another New Zealand memorial to the missing a short distance away, at the Buttes in Polygon Wood. These are not graves. These are the men nobody could find. They are still there. That is the plain fact of it. They are in the ground under the farmland, where the drainage was rebuilt and the crops came back and the fields turned green again, and the water was carried away once more, as it had been for hundreds of years, before anyone thought to fire 4 million shells into it. You were one of them, for one morning, on a slope nobody would have looked at twice. And nobody knows your name.